Good morning, evening, and afternoon. My name is Matthew Cheung, and today I'm going to be presenting on a topic that is increasingly critical in our society, homelessness. This is Beyond Shelter, a sustainable approach to ending homelessness. The aim of this presentation is to analyze the causes as well as the economic and societal impacts of America's growing homeless population through researching homeless population data and various research papers written on the topic. The aforementioned research is leveraged to show what next steps can be taken to address an evolving problem with evolving measures. Every day, on my way to crew practice, I used to pass by LA's famous Skid Row, and I began to realize that this is something that happened 30 minutes away from where I live. My consistent exposure caused me to start becoming more and more attuned to the harsh realities of homelessness, so this project started to become more and more personal as I did this. To me, homelessness is a moral crisis and a reflection of society's neglect of those who cannot care for themselves. I hope that today, by sharing this presentation with you, that I can raise awareness and that others will start a debate to take actions to end homelessness for good. Homelessness is a strain on public resources. It increases the rate of crime and deteriorates urban environments while creating a hazardous and ultimately unsustainable cycle. Given our data, we know that drugs and homelessness are intertwined issues. The speed of constructing housing units falls behind the growth of the homeless population. An addict is likely to return to homelessness until the addiction becomes manageable with professional help. The goal of this project is to create an economically sustainable solution by applying the principal agent game theory, in which we can limit the effects of substance abuse among the homeless and punish drug lords through a monetary incentive structure that leverages a modified IRS whistleblower program to encourage drug dealers to turn against drug lords. These photos were taken just last year in fall of 2023. As we can see, the streets are lined with tents, and signs of drug abuse are open. In Los Angeles, one visible response to homelessness is hostile architecture designed to deter the homeless from settling in public spaces. However, this doesn't solve the problem. It pushes it out of sight, such as benches with bumps and sharp rocks to create an uneven surface, preventing homeless from setting up tents. From 2022 to 2023, homelessness increased by 12%, affecting over 650,000 people on a single night. Major cities like Los Angeles and New York are disproportionately impacted, and homelessness continues to grow. Various approaches, such as the Housing First initiative and federal interventions, have been tried, but with limited success. Despite significant investments, homelessness continues to rise. Another example of this is the American Rescue Plan funding. The plan provided $5 billion for 70,000 emergency housing vouchers and allocated over $21 billion in emergency rental assistance to prevent evictions and stabilize housing during the pandemic. However, the success of these solutions are hard to measure, and the failure is readily apparent. The homeless are concentrated in metropolitan areas primarily, where land is scarce and expensive. Homelessness increased from 650,000 from 2022 to 2023, with 88,000 in New York and 71,000 in Los Angeles combined, 25% total of the nation's homelessness. Major cities experienced a 17% increase in homeless populations, 8% in urban areas, and 10% in rural areas from 2022 to 2023. 1,278 out of the 2,344 homeless refused shelter in San Francisco, refusing to comply with the rules. Drug overdose was the leading cause of death among the homeless in Los Angeles County from 2019 to 2021, accounting for 37% of all deaths. The situation is from the widespread availability and use of fentanyl, the primary drug driving overdose deaths. What does that mean? While homelessness and insufficient housing are correlated, as of now, government funding is being directed towards the creation of more housing units, an unsustainable and insufficient way to meet the growing homeless population. An addict who is formerly homeless is likely to become homeless again until their addiction is managed. The key to solving homelessness, therefore, is to attack the problem at its source, drugs. I would like to take a moment to mention that job loss, foreclosure, and high housing prices are major factors of homelessness. Oftentimes, homelessness and drug abuse have a complex and bidirectional relationship. Each can be both a cause and a symptom of the other. These are the top 3 reasons why people become homeless. The third is mental illness. Second is domestic violence, or escaping domestic violence. And the first is addiction or substance abuse. In large-scale illegal drug manufacturing, Chinese factories would ship their chemicals to Mexico, and Mexican drug cartels would smuggle those chemicals to an area controlled by drug lords. The drug lord would make those drugs and smuggle them across the border to be distributed by distributors and drug dealers. In 2017, consumer spending on illegal drugs was $153 billion, compared to the $4 billion in illegal prostitution and $11 billion in illegal gambling in the very same year. What makes fentanyl so dangerous? Only one incident of fentanyl was detected at the US-Mexico border in 2014. By 2022, 8,400 kilograms of fentanyl were seized at the border. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than methamphetamine, and in amounts as small as 2 milligrams, the weight of one sesame seed, fentanyl becomes deadly to the human body. In 2022, 110,000 Americans aged 18 to 49 died from fentanyl, which equates to 300 per day. A kilogram of precursor chemicals from China would cost approximately $800, which can be used to produce 415,000 fentanyl pills. Individually, each pill sells for $3. In 2022, the revenue generated by each fentanyl ranged from $700 million to $1 billion, with a much higher margin than heroin, even at its peak. This new trend favoring ultra-potent opioids means that fewer quantities of drugs are needed to be smuggled across the border. Less transport means less risk of search and seizure. In addition, fentanyl is an opioid that is produced through factories and labs. As mentioned earlier, this new drug has created more profits for drug dealers and reduced operating risks, but it has also made local production more popular. The IRS whistleblower program rewards individuals who provide information about tax evasion or fraud with a percentage of the recovered funds. To qualify, the information must lead to a significant tax collection, and the whistleblower may receive between 15% and 30% of the collected amount. The IRS protects whistleblower identities and offers guidance throughout the process. The problem with the existing solutions is that each state has its own rules on cracking down on drug abuse, such as Oregon, which has decriminalized the possession of small amounts of drugs, including up to 2 grams of methamphetamine or heroin through Measure 110, passed in 2020. Police enforcement is jailing drug addicts and petty dealers, causing unnecessary hardship for all parties involved. Meanwhile, the flow of drugs continues with minimal losses. So it seems like neither of these solutions are viable solutions. But by using tax evasion instead of local and state law enforcement to attack drug lords, we can circumvent state power to the federal government, as tax evasion is considered a federal crime. We can go after the source of the #1 cause of homelessness as an organized effort and use confiscated assets to fund future campaigns and rehabilitate the homeless into managing their addictions with the help of various NGOs. And with the absence of drugs on the streets, addicts will be incentivized to go to rehab. 2 birds with 1 stone. However, we must acknowledge several limits of the program. With the program, there are factors that can discourage whistleblowers from taking advantage. 90% of whistleblower claims are denied in the first examination. It can also take years for the whistleblower to receive the rewards, ranging from less than 4 to 14 years, and there is a lack of awareness among drug dealers. These factors mean that the whistleblower program provides little incentive for drug dealers to report to their employees and risk their own safety, which means that first, these problems need to be tackled in order for this program to become a viable solution. The agency dilemma occurs when one party, the drug lords acting as the principal, delegates work to another party, the drug dealers acting as agents, but their interests are not perfectly aligned. This misalignment can lead to the agent acting in ways that aren't in the best interest of the principal, but are in the best interest of the agent. Certain conflict points include career advancement, asymmetric information, and risk to reward payoff. The factors that make up the decision matrix are IRS whistleblower program reward, R factor, risk of retaliation from the drug lords, T factor, potential legal consequences for the dealer, L factor, and remaining loyal to the drug lord, current income, I, plus potential future earnings, F. The game reaches equilibrium when the expected payoff from cooperation exceeds the expected payoff from remaining. What this means is that the agent can be motivated to act against the principal if given the correct incentives and if the rewards outweigh the rewards of remaining loyal. What this new program does to patch up the risks and insecurities of the previous solution is by creating a split rewards arrangement. The company will front-load partial payments to informants to reduce payout time with incentivized informants, enhance efficiency of IRS with higher quality tips, disrupt acceleration on information and executive flow. On-the-ground expertise, intelligence, and evidence is gathered based on assessment tip quality. This new company would complement the IRS whistleblower program to accelerate the flow of actionable information and to increase efficiency. The company would have a board of trustees responsible for overseeing the executive team, and the executive team would be responsible for day-to-day operations. The board of trustees oversees the executive team on driving the agency dilemma. The fentanyl market alone is valued at $100 billion annually. If we assume that the program successfully captures 0.5% of that market, which is $500 million approximately, the executive team would keep 15% of the collected funds, $75 million. Of this $75 million, we could allocate 70% of these proceeds to whistleblowers, drug dealers, and similar insiders, giving them $52.5 million in total. This leaves the team's fund revenue at $22.5 million. With a well-structured team and efficient operations, our model can generate substantial net income. These funds would be reinvested in NGOs for rehabilitating the homeless, creating a sustainable feedback loop that addresses the root causes of homelessness. The primary objective is to mitigate the number one cause of the homeless issue. The remaining $9 million can be allocated towards NGOs to rehabilitate the homeless for skill training programs and drug rehab programs to manage addiction. But what makes this model work better than current models is that, unlike current models, our approach uses federal powers to bypass lenient state laws and aligns incentives with human behavior. By motivating drug dealers to turn on their superiors, we create a sustainable ecosystem that tackles homelessness at its source. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. This has been Matthew Cheung, a sustainable approach to ending homelessness. My Instagram is mcheung07. My email is matthewcheung400@gmail.com. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email me. Thank you.